for his teams to be able to walk them
At least
through
weekend following this.
So, we turn to Elephant Gang versus Obey Alliance, and as you mentioned, John Ackerley, also known as Avian, good old John, mentioned in his interview last week that he feels pretty confident about this matchup. He feels pretty good about it.
I don't know if I've ever seen him not feeling confident, to be honest.
I mean, he said he's got some interesting things prepared, and they've got some strats ready, so I'd anticipate that this is going to be a match not without its fireworks. So we'll get things underway with Coastline for our first map of the day.
And the Lion ban, not unexpected at all from pretty much any match at this point. Ying is definitely a good ban on this map as well, although I would say Glaz is probably the stronger ban for this map at the moment as a secondary one, but at the same time, it depends on who you're facing against, whether or not, for example, they have a good Glaz, if it's something you want to worry about. But the fact that it's not banned means we might see it, but Mirror is going to be taken off. Again, not too much of a surprise. Probably Echo coming up next, but some teams like to shake up that second one.
Mira ban on Coastline is pretty standard. Echo or Maestro will usually inhabit this role, but we've seen weird things. But there you go, Echo gone. Echo is just so strong. And one of the things that Echo has over Maestro is that Echo can directly deny your plant, right? There is plant denial in hand for Maestro. The Evil Eyes do 5 damage per tick to you, but they overheat before taking you down. So if you've been softened up previously in the round, or if you've got a teammate there to assist you, yeah, the Evil Eyes are perfectly capable of stopping you. But the Yokai drone, especially with 2 of them, it's a possible 4 disorienting blasts that stop you from planting in your tracks, and we've seen it time and time again. If you don't have an operator that can deal with it, i.e. an IQ perchance, who you see on the board right now with Trippin running, and we usually would see Skies run on Obey, though if I remember, I think they had Maman or Bosco on the IQ in a previous matchup this week.
Trying to change it up a little bit after we may have been a little critical of Skies' play on it.
Obey has always struggled to get the most out of the utility that they bring with their operators. I don't think there's any argument there that Obey is a team that are capable of fragging well with pretty much any operator. You know, they were one of the few teams in NA, if you go and look at Pro League as an example, that were routinely bringing Sledge. Not an operator that you really see among North American, Canadian, etc. teams. But Obey was one of the last teams to be bringing Sledge reliably. They can frag very well. The problem with Obey has always been being able to put 2 and 2 together in regards to the utility of these operators, and especially IQ. They've lost a lot of rounds across an abundance of competition to Yokai drones, to Valkyrie cameras, to Vigils. When you've got an IQ on the board and you just can't get them spotted with the gadget, it's very perplexing to watch.
Well, on the upside for Obey, they do have a lot of intel to work with if they can communicate that well as a team. They've got the Maestro Evil Eyes, they've got Benji on Pulse, they've got those Black Eyes from Skies as well, so plenty of intelligence to make those calls to be able to do those things. Obviously, they're on defense first, so they wouldn't have to deal with a plant denial coming from those, but at the same time, Trippin being on that IQ means a lot of that could be shut down fairly quickly. They do have the ability to take out those the Evil Eyes with both the Zofia as well as the grenades of Neptune's on Buck. So definitely a possibility you could see those shut down, but those could be in difficult to reach positions. Starting on Kitchen first, not a big surprise, as that is a very strong bomb site when you don't have mirror. I mean, Penthouse is one people have been kind of trying to do without the mirrors, but it's definitely been a struggle for a lot of teams. Kitchen, definitely much more reliable, especially when someone like Benji can stay a lot safer down in Kitchen. He's more on-site and still being functional, as opposed to having to play underneath, off-site, like you would on some of the top floor sites.
Now, for those that are unaware of how Coastline plays out, usually you're anticipating that the attackers will win more rounds than they won't. It is usually reserved for one of the few maps that are very good for the attackers. This is exacerbated by the fact that the defense lose a lot with the Mira ban and then possibly an Echo ban as well. But can we get the leadoff kill here? No, Benji's going to get spotted and tagged by the Capitao of K9 watching ever so valiantly and say goodbye to Benji. He's going to wide peek the doorway, and K9 doing what he does best.
Yeah, watching an angle.
Watching an angle, staying completely still and not missing those shots, and a good opening frag there to take out the Pulse after he'd used his C4.
In the meantime, though, Ghost has taken a bit of damage, and he is one of the strong fragging operators on the team, so they're not even going to bother with the reset. They're just going to hope they can continue to push this, but they have Buck doing all the floor destruction. They could use breach charges from Trippin as well to be able to open up a lot of that floor, so a lot of floor destruction going to happen, which it puts a lot onto my man here to actually go for a horizontal flank onto them, sneaking around as that Jaeger upstairs if he can put some pressure on them, stop them from looking down, that will definitely help, because Avian is going to be able to put horizontal pressure on downstairs with that glass, very likely from delivery or kitchen window.
Yeah, so there's, and this is the site as well of kitchen, where you can tear apart a lot of that floorway, and once you get control of penthouse and theater up above, it's very difficult for the defenders to be able to regroup there. The best that they can do is kind of retreat into the delivery entrance, which is where you see Bosco staring, but it can be tough, especially with the Glaz and a Capitao on the board. They can take a lot away from the defenders there, and the asphyxiating bolt will have to flush Bosco and Skies out. Skies will get tagged through the wall. He's just trying to get away, and he'll head for the hills, but he's been spotted, and oh no, Skies is as free as the day is long. Neptune's just eviscerating the Valkyrie from above. 2 sets of plant denial now off the board. And Bosco will need to do a lot of work with that smoke. No C4s available any longer. Avian taking out Adam, traded off, but my man on a big rotate. Tries to go through the window, and oh, there's my man! He just needs to shut down the Glaz, and waiting on time. Avian will need to peek him. They need to get the plant down, but 1 second left. Avian's gonna get outfoxed by my man, and he's gonna get it! Avian gets the kill at the final second on an intense finish. My man not able to stay alive long enough. No plant needed, a big round for the Glaz, and my man almost steals the show.
I don't even want to call those impact last frags, because he put up such an effort and just barely lost it out there. You saw the slow creep by him early on. The patience paid off. Just at that point, Elephant Gang did not have a strong enough peg on all the players. They were doing a great job pinning down the site, making sure that all the players there were getting pushed off of their positions. You saw that being from the Capitao, they were baiting out the smokes. They were doing a great job clearing it out and setting it up from above as well as the doorway, but none of them were ready for that flank from my man. So absolutely was so close to paying off there. I almost feel a little bit bad for him just because of the fact that, well, it didn't pay off in the end. But again, that was on Avian. Just, you know, he kind of gambled as well. He decided, you know what, I can't get this plant down. I'm just going to go for it and hope I can land the shots this time. And the PMM, as we know, sometimes is as much of a killer as the rifle.
It looked like it was out of ammo as well. I think he connected those final few shots.
Yeah, very likely.
And then from that point on, I mean, you got to be very, very lucky.
Yeah. But luckily, it does so much damage per shot. You don't have to land a ton of those shots themselves. Not to mention, of course, he's a 3-speed 1 armor, so you do have a slight advantage in that fight, assuming you can land those shots. Either way, though, did barely manage to win that. Avian did pretend he was going to go on something other than Glaz with the Maverick, but then sneak it over to the Glaz. He will be doing the same thing again on the same bomb site, so they're going to try it again. Not every team does do-overs on bomb sites. There are quite a few teams who just rotate off regardless. In this case, they will just continue to do it. The upside, I would say, of being a team that will be comfortable rotating off is, of course, you make it so they don't know exactly where you're going next. But at the same time, there is... The nice thing about this format means you can adapt very quickly to something as opposed to thinking about it 3 rounds later when you may have forgot the adaptations you were planning to make. So we'll see if they can make those adaptations. Now, of course, they're going to be a little more prepared, I got to imagine, from my man's flank this time. So it's going to be on them to be a little more creative, but Benji has switched on to Legion instead of the Pulse. So I got to imagine he might actually go for a little bit of late game roam, potentially.
That was a huge risk as well, the way they used my man to put him on such a late flank. I mean, it's happened time and time again to a number of teams if they don't commit a flank watch. But Obey were down men. They had a big issue with coverage. They basically kept 2 bodies on site, and they relied solely on my man to get undetected, which he did. Yeah. There was nobody from E-Gang, and it was a bit of a blind spot in their defense, as I don't think most teams are expecting with 30 seconds left for there to be that late of a flank. And usually you would commit somebody to flank watch, absolutely. I can't believe that there was nobody watching, or maybe they were, and we just didn't see it, that in the ensuing fight, they lost the battle to engage. But my man got 2 kills then before he flew out the window and picked up a 3rd.
Well, there was 3 focused on the door at that point, and I think because he'd waited for them to lessen what they were doing upstairs and focus more on the doorway, he had even if they had the extra drones or anything like that at that point, they were so busy firing downwards, no one was there to watch drone because, I mean, only dead players at that point would have been able to even watch those flanks at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, there might have been a Claymore there, not that we noticed. You had a Capitao on the board, so clearly there's at least 1 Claymore that's available at some point. But the Capitao might not have put it down.
Well, definitely a lot more of the attack this time coming from the bar side, as they wanted to change things up as well, because Elephant King doesn't want to be read into what they're going to do on their attack, but they are doing a little bit of realm hunt.
I mean, I think they suspect that my man is prone somewhere inside of VIP, and there you go. Adam is going to take some damage. Neptunes had gotten a couple bullets into him, and it appears that my man is fallen now off towards the couch side of things, and this Jaeger is just wasting so much time. Say goodbye to the Glaz. One of the most important operators last round will fall to Adam on Obey, and my man just missing a tag. He gets the down on a K9 so long. Ghost Neptunes trades it off as Benji does get the kill for Obey. K9 will need to be picked up, and Neptunes, dives right down. And Scotty connects, takes out Adam, and the Maestro says goodbye inside a main lobby.
Such a risky pickup right in front of that big open wall, but that's why teams leave it open. But Skies and Benji with the flanks there. Again, down to just tripping at this point. Yeah, he has the ability to look for gadgets, but at this point, you're looking for players more and find Skies. Just 2 left to get, but he's the one on low health.
There's going to be a stack of goo mines available as well, and you can see, Trippin gets Benji. Bosco's going to need to clutch this one. What can he do? And there he has it with the SMG in hand. Shuts down Trippin and won't give him more than the 2 that Trippin had picked up right before that. Also, interesting to see an SMG-11 at such close range. The vertical recoil taking it right up to the neck and head. That's still the prime range to get a 1 shot on that shotgun. No real way else that Bosco could have screwed that up other than maybe a pre-fire from Trippin as a 3-speed around that corner, but ultimately a good hold. And more importantly, Obey take the one site that we expect defenders to win, which is Kitchen. This would have been very bad for them if this had been 2 rounds in a row with Kitchen falling to the attackers, because that doesn't give you a lot of options outside of that. Some teams have really struggled to be able to win the double bars, Penthouse Theater, or Hookah. So if you can't win Kitchen, you're in bad shape for most of the defense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good chance at best you come out of that 3-2 disadvantaged. But to be fair, though, both of those rounds did come down to a 1v1. So both teams were very, I would say, equally matched on that bomb site. And I still, again, think the lack of banning Glaz is something that can hurt. At least they're going to try the Glaz. I mean, Avian's been literally a little hit and miss with it, but at the same time, it's still a very powerful operator. It is one where you can feel comfortable, as you're seeing here, not bringing hard breachers. This is one of the few maps where you can say, you don't need hard breachers. You could just bring a Glaz for the most part. And it's something that has been interesting to see as a development when it's not banned. But at the same time, Obey, hopefully knowing that, going to try and take advantage of that. Now, they are bringing a castle, which is interesting where it sits in terms of Glaz right now, because you still can shoot through it, but you cannot break a castle barricade with it. In the future, that may change to where the castle barricade can't even be shot through. But at the moment, it's not a bad place for castle to be in if you know you're going to be dealing with a Glaz. That then again, it is mostly on the Zofia at that point to open those castle barricades, as you don't often want to waste a grenade on them if you can help it. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do to get those barricades open, or you're in a tough spot. Hopefully, though, they manage to use the soft breachers when they have them, if need be, to get those open. We are going to have Skies again on the roam. I mean, it makes sense for a Valkyrie to be on the roam just because, well, you set up your own cameras, you know where they're positioned, you know how to use them to help you if they're inside. But this is a map where a lot of them go outside. But I've got to imagine they know that if Trippin's playing, it's riskier to throw them outside.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't really noticed a ton from Trippin in regards to his IQ play. Most of the times that we've seen him, he's just been full fragging mode. It hasn't really been gadget out. And I mean, the 5.56 Commando, here's one of the follies of IQ is she is a very strong weapon. Her pistol is all right, it's pretty average. And she does obviously an excellent job of being able to take out any errant ADSs, goo mines, Valkyrie cameras, yokais, etc., while also being able to give off the information of any evil eyes, etc., that are needed. But while she has that pistol out, she also doesn't have access to one of the strongest guns on attack. It does so much damage, and that's a big reason as to why Skies plays her so much, is because Skies likes the gun, and she's a 3-speed, and
well, speaking of Skies,
say goodbye to Skies. Ghost manages to find him inside of security, just outside of the door in the main lobby, and goodbye.
A lot of angle play happening here. Now, the only one from Obey that's really changing up operators most of the time is Benji. So I think a lot of him is about making the adaptations. It's all kind of on what his role changes are, whereas the rest of Obey is pretty much playing the way that they're going to play. Regardless of the bomb site, for the most part, they have Skies on roam. Adam is kind of a working site with Bosco. You have Benji as kind of that sort of flex, and my man will potentially roam. If, though, Elephant and Gang are reading into that, each round should get better on their attack in terms of dealing with that, although, to be fair, they did lose the last one. But now Bosco is going to potentially get pinned out here by Avian, but at least he knows the Glaz rifle is there.
Benji over here by the planter inside of the hallway. It's commonly referred to as jungle by some teams. I know what they call that. G2 refers to it as, because you're amidst a whole bunch of different types of flora, I believe it's called. So Avian is going to sprint into the side of double bars here. He's got some smoke to cut off an angle, and then trying to use that thermal scope, quote-unquote, sees Benji, and 2 shots is all it takes for Benji to fall. Avian's going to continue to try to tie this rampage together. Maman able to down K9, finish him off. Planter goes down, so that's a successful defuse in half of Elephant Gang, and Avian is just trying to play keep away now, as he's going to take Adam down and not let him get towards the site. Bosco trying to come in, Neptunes is there holding cover, and well, it's all up to Maman again, but Ghost got first kill, he'll also get the 5th kill, a nice bookend to the round, and that will be Elephant Gang picking up their 2nd over 3 rounds.
Well, they were definitely expecting Maman to try and come for that retake late this time. It's definitely not going to be a big surprise to them, and just they had the manpower left to be able to deal with it in that situation, so it wasn't being flanked, and they had the diffuser down long enough for them to figure that out. So thankfully, Elephant Gang doing pretty well on their own map. So Penthouse is going to be the long shot here. It is, I mean, it is surprising to see a team want to go to Penthouse versus Hookah, just because I think Hookah's actually been not too bad. If you're good at repelling the push from Aqua into Billiards, it's not a terrible site to play, especially if you have a good smoke player like they do on Bosco. It surprises me they wouldn't consider that more. But then again, with the Glass, that's a nice long angle he could fight from the actual doorway to the balcony in Aqua, and as well as we've seen some even teams play from outside, even as far away as the Ruins area, to be able to fire in long angles through the Billiards window, which can help with the plant if they go for a smoke plant. So at the same time, though, Penthouse is a difficult one to do at the moment, but maybe he's going to take a page out of what we saw from Latin America, where Elephant Gang is going to bring a clash on the defense there, which does help with peeking some windows, being able to put some control onto Penthouse as well as VIP. I mean, even in theater, if need be, depending on how you adapt it, if you have the call outs ahead of time on where the attackers are going to be and be able to rotate to that position fast enough, because it is a slow operator, you can be in the right position at the right time to deny so much time without doing it in the way a typical roamer would, where you're risking your life half the time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams that don't have good strats for Clash will struggle to use her effectively. I mean, even a team such as SK, if we can reference Pro League for just a second here, on Monday, SK, who typically have very good strats involving shield operators, who typically have some development in regards to how they're going to use things and don't usually see their strats completely fall apart, especially on defense. Well, I think Mint got literally evaporated as he got hit with concussive mines and asphyxiating bolt and then just shot to pieces inside of the hallway. It was an absolute massacre on Villa. That, and I mean, even G2, when we've seen before, when the way that they've ran Clash at the highest level, they use Jonas on Clash and goes on scouting missions, and while you get pinched pretty early on, the problem with Clash for a lot of teams is that if you've got utility, it's much easier to take care of her.
Well, speaking of which, E-Gang has those tools.
Yes, they have, you know, they've got the concussive mines of Ghost, they've got frag grenades on the Buck, they've got asphyxiating bolts on the Capitao. 3 tools that can work quite well to eliminate a Clash, but if the Clash can stay safe enough so that most of that has already been used, there's very little outside of pure fragging potential or a 2v1 in which you can knock her shield away with a melee and then be able to punish her that you can do. So it's really important that with Obey running this Clash, number 1, Skies doesn't get too aggressive and take any fights, and 2, he trusts and relies on his team to have his back and make sure that they can waste time and gadgets on the attackers.
Well, I think it comes down to good communication from both teams in terms of the attackers knowing where Clash is to position the Capitao or the Zofia for the counter, as well as Skies knowing where the attackers are so he can counter those particular operators in terms of not being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, good opportunity here to possibly get my man. He doesn't know he's been spotted on drone unless he did just catch the drone, which actually looks like he might have, as you heard the carbine go off, and now the Jaeger will head towards the bathroom. But Ghost was droning himself in main lobby, spots the Jaeger, and was in great position to possibly take out the Jaeger. However, because that main door is open towards the lobby, as well as the delivery door that you see right next to him, it's going to be very difficult for Ghost to be able to sit on that rappel without worry. Now, depending on what the Zofia brought, you can conceivably, those asphyxiating bolts just missing the Clash. If he brought a Claymore, you can at least try to take one of those doorways out of action. But if he brought breaching charges, which would be strange on this site in particular, that could be taken away from him.
Well, at least they were able to get Bosco out of the position. But yeah, I believe that was both the asphyxiating bolts used, which in this case then makes it Skies is a lot safer in holding his position. But that doesn't necessarily mean he can do a ton to deny much other than try and protect Bosco, which unfortunately he has failed to do as Bosco has been downed.
Oh, my man is in a position to possibly go for a good flank here, but the Buck is going to be the one to see him. Can Neptunes connect the shots? No! Where you'll see, my man will walk away with the kill. Ghost finishing off Bosco, and there you have it. Sky's now finished off by Trippin from the other angle. Full control of the site. It's only up to the Maestro of Adam, but He'll look longingly in the doorway, and it's the scope of the glass that will see him first. Avian getting the kill, and that's now 3 rounds for Elephant Gang, doing as they need to do on attack here.
Yeah, a lot of the small adaptations for Obey, not changing enough of the game for them in terms of the way that EG are playing. It's been fairly dominant in a lot of ways. Some of the flanks have worked to an extent. I mean, the kill on Neptunes was definitely good from my man, but he was spotted, and it was a situation where it was just, he barely won that gunfight out, and it technically should have gone over to Neptune. So my man is, your tricks are starting to get a little bit predictable for them. I think there's only so many ways. We've talked about this before. In this particular map, roamers have to roam in somewhat of a square circle, which makes you a lot more predictable. There's 2 stairwells as opposed to some maps which have 3. So your ability to rotate around and flank and do things like that is difficult on this map if they can expect where you're coming from and do proper flank watch, as Neptunes was trying to do. He did eventually fall, of course, during the middle of the attack after Neptunes died, because, of course, Neptunes was going to call out his position. But I still got to appreciate what my man's trying to do, because he is, I would say, being one of the more effective players on the team in terms of being able to at least stunt some of Elephant Gang's attack, because Elephant Gang's attack outside of some of those flanks seems to be very bulldozer-ish in terms of just pushing over, getting the map control they want fairly easily, pushing towards the site fairly easily. Sometimes the executes don't always work out in the chaos of all the fights, but at the same time, Elephant Gang seems very confident in their attack strategies. As you said, this is an attacker-favored map in many respects, depending on how the operator bans go down. The way they went down, I think, even more so favors the attackers, just because, yeah, you got the mirror ban, but you also got the glass left on the board. So in this case, Elephant Gang, a little bit of an advantage. Tables may turn after this round, as this is, of course, the last round for them on attack. But if Obey lose maybe a little bit too much of their motivation on some of these defenses, that may be a little bit of a struggle. Sometimes you want to start on the side that's going to be more round favored.
I mean, we saw it in the strength match with Obey. Once they started to get behind, I don't know how strong their mental fortitude is, if I can use that turn of phrase here, in particular against an opponent that seems to bamboozle you. Now, the way that Avian said it in the interview last week, I was under the impression that we were going to see some really zany stuff. I mean, that might come on
Map
defense.
1.
It's Map 1. It's also Elephant Gang's map, so maybe, because this is your map, take it slow, play the game you know, walk away with a victory. You got Consulate next. I know that Consulate is Obey's map, but we saw Consulate in the matchup of Obey versus Strength, and Strength almost ate their lunch. So
yeah, it was interesting. I mean, early kill into K9 though is definitely going to help. Or I mean, from K9 here is definitely going to help things out, because a Maestro dying early in the round, I'd say it's not one of those ones that seems like an obviously really strong pick, but Maestro is so strong later in the round just because he's such a tank inside the site that's really going to soften things up, and again put more onto my man to try and help save this.
And worth noting that when Maestro dies, the Evil Eye cams get locked in place, cannot be rotated by your teammates. So if you're not looking the right way, those Evil Eye cams can become completely useless for your team. So not only do you get the LMG fragging potential gone from Maestro with one of the strongest guns on defense right now and an ACOG to boot, but, well, you also lose 2 Evil Eye cams. Meanwhile,
2 kills for Avian.
Amidst our discussion, Avian is just absolutely bullying Obey. 2 very important picks onto both Maman and Skies. That's a weight off of the attackers as well, as the flank watch will need to be not quite as strong. Maman will be gone, and that's going to leave Bosco and Benji on the board. Tons of explosives from above, and oh, Benji now under fire, cannot outduel Trippin with the breaching charges, the IQ just wreaking havoc from above. Bosco is pinned down, and, well, he's going to have to drone himself. Or he's going to have to kill the drone himself, but as for the rest of the team, well, this is going to be very difficult. There's a Glaz coming in through the service entrance, and Bosco's going to throw down 1 Toxic Babe, expecting a push from Courtyard. He's going to have to hold many angles. He will get Ghost, so that's a good start, and pings will come down from the Evil Eye cams. Goo might not have to be pulled out of the foot of Trippin, but as you can see from Elephant Gang's bar in that top left, not a lot of damage that's been done to them. Diffuser is going down. Asphyxiating Bolt will hold him in place for just a second, as Bosco will now have to battle against a Diffuser. So that's 2 rounds that Elephant Gang will have gotten that Diffuser planted successfully.
With 45 seconds left to spare as well, which is a very good, confident attacking round.
Bosco's going to try to go for a rotate as he does some environmental destruction and tries to reshape the kitchen so he can get a vault out, but I think he realizes that he's got the time working against him. He's going to blow a couple holes in the wall, and, well, there's Avian there, and from above you've also got the Buck. Bosco's going to try to fight on too many angles, way too many windows to look out, and that's a 4-1 split through the first half. Elephant Gang, well, they're just trampling over their opponents, and they've only got 2 more rounds to pick up on defense in order to put Coastline in the books.
And I definitely think it's possible. This is usually a map where we very often see teams go 3-2 across it in terms of being able to pick up 2 defensive rounds, but Some of that's going to depend on whether or not the attacker bans actually favored Obey or hurt them as well, because we saw Avian willing to run with the Glaz every round and take advantage of the fact that it's not being played, whereas I don't know if we will really see the same thing from Obey. That doesn't seem like something that is really a strength for them in terms of the way they want to play it. They're going to play with a slightly different lineup. Instead, they are going to go with a hard breacher, which I said is the one of the few maps where you can kind of interchange those. In fact, I believe it was Fabian who might have even said that, where he's like, we have Glaz, we don't need a hard breacher.
Yes.
So it is a case where they're going to go with the hard breacher instead, and we're going to see the one bomb site we have yet to see, which is Hookah. So this should be interesting to see how this goes down, because it will be down to whether or not Obey are able to read in quickly to what Elephant Gang are doing, because, of course, Elephant Gang set it up so they only have to win 2 rounds now, so that is just even more pressure on you to adapt quicker, rather than say, okay, we lost that round, that's fine, we can come back on the next one. Well, maybe not so much when you're down that much already in a 4-1 situation. It's definitely looking good, though, for Elephant Gang. They've been looking forward to this match for a week now, and it's definitely, so far at least on their map, paying off for them.
I mean, like I said, Kitchen is usually going to be the site that you anticipate that teams will win. It went 1-2 for Obey. They only had
barely on the 1 win.
Yeah, I mean, it was still quite tense that they had there. I mean, they did come very close with my man's flank, so there needs to be some credit that's paid to them in that sense. But outside of that, we didn't really see all that much. It seemed like a lot of times Obey did not have coverage for the early push. They lost a body much faster than you'd anticipate, and they would rely very heavily on the late flank, and that's playing with fire.
And I mean, to be fair, in the early rounds, it was the right strategy to make. In the later rounds, it was not the kind of thing you could rely on anymore, as we were talking about. And they even decided to finally rotate Skies off of the Valkyrie, and instead went with, we'll have him on Pulse instead, which I don't think is going to give the same caliber of info, other than trying to stop the push from upstairs, which unfortunately they were not able to push back whatsoever. So that pick, well, I think he might have even been the first kill. It left them in a situation where they didn't have the intel once he was dead, the same way they would have with those Black Eyes.
I mean, there were a couple of times when Adam was the first casualty as well, and possibly even Benji, and it's not good when you're losing pivotal operators who you need in that home stretch of a round.
Yeah.
So
could go either way. So, I mean, we'll see how Elephant Gang does with the same utility, though.
Obey being able to walk into Aquarium right now, and they take out the one castle barricade. Now, here's something that we also haven't seen from these teams, are castle-heavy strats with environmental destruction to open things up and give a lot of room to the defenders to be able to play quite comfortably. It was something that Obey was lacking, as I noted. They had a lot of trouble being able to secure their position on site, and I think it was Bosco who only reliably lasted until the final moments of the round.
Especially that last round, he really put in an effort. But my man, Sky's the first to go, unfortunately. That means this attack already shut down a little bit, because losing those 2 operators early is definitely a lot of firepower. Maybe not necessarily the utility, but a lot of good gunplay is going to be gone now.
I mean, you're losing somebody who is integral for possibly finding those Evil Eye cams, as well as the Black Eyes that you have of Valkyrie. That's problematic. You've also got 2 of the best guns on attack that are taken out as well, and any real presence that you would have downstairs in the bars, being able to shoot up the floor and really cause a lot of problems for the defenders in the Buck is gone. It's all up to Bosco now to really make that happen.
Well, now it's going to be a lot on Benji and Bosco to both use the utility to force people out of those positions, because without the Buck to do that, that's what you have to do. Because, yeah, when you have people like K9 that can sit in a position and hold an angle, you better believe he's going to be good at that, and they have just utility to deal with that.
And speaking of that utility, Bosco still has 1 concussive blast remaining, but has used 2 prior. Heard the ADS go off and possibly eat them out. K9 had sustained quite a bit of damage playing inside of pink, as you saw that Adam's Hibana was playing on the roof. So they've got the flank that's possibly cut off, and now Obey will just have to go for it. 20 seconds in, but there's Trippin to greet them. 1 with the SMG-11. He'll pick up a second, gets downed by Bosco, and once again, a familiar refrain. It's all up to Bosco, one of Obey's best players, but it's not going to matter. Neptunes will put his team on match point, and this has been a powerful performance for Elephant Gang, up 5-1 right now.
Well, it's definitely going to be, then if this ends up being a fairly short map, it's going to be on Obey to have a strong start, I think, on Consulate, both from a motivational standpoint for their team, but as well as for Elephant Gang, to make it seem like Elephant Gang, because they're going to be feeling fairly unstoppable right now, and that's something that is, when restrained, is a very powerful thing in this game because confidence can give you the ability to make peaks and shots that you wouldn't necessarily normally. It almost feels like a superpower at times if it's channeled properly, because you want to be able to push aggressively in situations where you have the knowledge to take advantage of that. You do not want to be too passive when you have potential advantage. Elephant Gang seems to be playing off of that strength a lot, where they know where people are at. They'll peek it. They'll play those plays. They'll make the pushes confidently into the site. I mean, I got to imagine the drone play was fairly good for them on attack. Unfortunately, they can't do the same thing on defense, obviously, but they're still having the knowledge to play off of that. They're, again, using the black guys to help with that, although we saw the one in Aqua did get taken out. But either way, with my man, as you mentioned earlier, going down sooner rather than later, definitely made sure it was harder for them to deny whatever information Elephant Gang had to be able to continue to be confident in their plays that seemed to work. Even you saw with Trippin towards the end there playing with the SMG-11 and the shotgun to just completely try and push them off the site.
Not often that we reference the scoreboard of players, especially in this matchup, which has not been exactly a matchup where impact frags have been the big deal for a lot of these teams. There haven't been a lot of trade-offs. It's mostly been opening kills, and then from there it's snowballed for both of these teams. But when you've got Adam and Skies both bottom fragging, especially Skies, who's one of his biggest focuses is on getting those kills. He's probably one of the best shots that we've seen over Obey through and through in terms of his ability to land those bullets on their targets.
Yeah. I can imagine it's team coordination and communication, and
Absolutely.
but that's always been Obey's seeming difficulty that they've had.
It was a team that was assembled a couple months back, and I think a lot of people were very high on them and said that, you know, it was a team of superstars that a lot of people thought that the fragging potential would be able to carry them. But I know that we all as casters in every single league have touched upon how support players really matter and don't get the glory that they need. I think that this team is a perfect example of how vital good support play is.
Elephant Gang especially as well, because there's a lot of former support players forming up that team.
Yes, that's true. There's not a ton of fraggers on Elephant Gang. You know, you had Neptunes who would usually get some frags on attack, but on defense would usually play a smoke roll or a sight roll. You know, you've got Ghost who's a fragger through and through, don't get me wrong in that regard. K9 who would typically do flank holds or even just anti-rotate holds for attack. So you've got that. But yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, Trippin can play Ash as well. So if you've got flexibility, and K9 gets droned out, and their Sky's getting an important frag, and he's going to be able to open things up here, taking out the Maestro. And Obeyed lost the Maestro a couple times, so you know how pivotal Maestro can be. Well,
he heard you about the frags there in terms of Skies struggling. But to be fair, he is tending to be a stronger fragger on attack often than he is on defense. A lot of times when we see Skies play, but at the same time, it's, you know, it depends on how they're playing in the map, and we may see things change over on Consulate as well. Maybe the case where he's fragging out on defense there. But either way, that was a good start for this round, at least taking down K9. We talked last round about losing Maestro early and how much that could impact the round. But in this case, nice kill back from Trippin is going to start to change things back. However, completely falling apart here for Elephant Gang.
Obey are in great position now to just break open Elephant Gang as Avian tries to rotate haplessly to help the rest of his team. Neptunes with a very low rate of DPS on that MPX will have no shot, literally, as he does not connect on what he really needs. Benji is the savior of that round, and Obey will manage to stave off defeat, at least for the time being. We will sit on match point for the next 3 rounds unless Elephant Gang is able to put one on the books, which is not exactly a guarantee given the way that Coastline plays out. They have not gone down to Kitchen, though, so that is something that is open to them. It does appear that they're going to go with that first, as it looks like they might have it locked in. Excellent choice for them, I think, overall. As, like we said, that's typically the site that we expect you to win upon. Yeah,
and it's a case where playing the Glaz on that, I think, is very favorable, whereas, like I said, the Obey is not going to be playing that. They're not going to be taking advantage of that. I mean, whether or not you like Glaz, he is an advantage operator in a lot of situations where he's going to provide an advantage that you just cannot get from anyone else. Yeah, you can look through smoke with an Evil Eye, but the laser is nowhere near as powerful as Glaz's rifle. So it is such a strong thing to be able to play with in combination with a Capital, especially because your ability to land those smoke canisters very precisely, as well as deny, right through ADSs. On a site like this where ADSs are typically going to be that kind of down that funnel of delivery, if you don't even have to worry about those, it becomes down a lot of times to the smoke player, and we saw that with Bosco to try and deny that. In this case, that's going to be Trippin. So if they can stay alive long enough to continue to block that, maybe even see some good use from Avian's Castle, there's not necessarily as much that I would say that Obey can do. And you were talking about them bringing Sledge a lot earlier. That's what they're going with again. My man's going to be on that Sledge, but they also have the Buck. So vertical should work in their favor this round if they're able to take top floor control quickly and hold on to it. If they don't go for a flank from Elephant Gang like we saw from my man.
On the double bar defense we just saw, there wasn't as much of a focus on vertical play. And I think that worked very well for Obey, but you're unlikely to be able to pull that off a second time. You can't just have all of that presence from your team go in through the front door because you'll get picked apart, especially as you see, you know, Elephant Gang will likely rotate to try and stop that push through the double bars foyer. But as for Kitchen, your first point of contact is going to be inside a penthouse, and that's Ghost, who's very aggressively taking the fight towards Hall of Fame, and there's 3 bodies from Obey that are all stacked up there. You see my man, Bosco, and Benji with Skies, so make that 4. And they're going to have to confront Ghost and Neptunes playing inside of Theater.
So far, they've committed a minute just to pretty much get into Hall of Fame. And 2 men inside Theater tends to be a very strong thing because more often than not, you're going to be able to trade 1, at least, if not 2 kills out from the defenders, and then be able to rotate whoever's left back to site. So if Obey is not very coordinated in this attack and using some of the utility from the Zofia or the Capital, it's very likely that they're going to lose a few people trying to push Theater.
Now, the way that drone got in, it might be possible that one of these 2 defenders from Elephant Gang has not been spotted. They knew that the Jaeger was up there. They were able to try and hunt down Ghost, but Neptune's position might not be known to them. There's Neptune's gone, though, so they do know there's a Valkyrie, or at least there was a Valkyrie, and the Sledge of a Man will take 75 damage in the encounter, but will walk away with the frag. That is important. To start things off, that'll be a C4 off the board, but it's taken about a minute and a half for Obey to be able to establish control in Penthouse and Theater.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately wasn't able to trade, but burning the time here alone, if Ghost doesn't die and is able to even rotate back to site, that's still a lot of advantage for Elephant Gang. I mean, yeah, they have to worry about a lot of that vertical play, but still, Ghost being able to hang out up here and stop, you know, being contested, definitely going to work his advantage. Unfortunately, has to tear down a castle barricade, but I suppose Avian gets it back in his pocket if he wanted to use it later.
That could actually be a smart move because if Avian knows that he has time, he could be establishing that castle barricade somewhere else and possibly using it at this point to try and keep out the attackers. But we mentioned the vertical pressure. Skies is up there right now trying to rip everything open. It also looked like he was doing some flank watch from above. Trippin says goodbye. Bosco gets that kill. Second for Obey, but Ghost gets the first for his team.
Nice for him to finish off the job that Neptune started, managing to get that kill. That is one less person that can start some vertical pressure, but Skies is still more than enough in this. This is where AV needs to play it smart, though, because the plant's going to start to go down. They have the manpower, but they've got to find the spot where the plant's actually... There we go. Adam going down. Now it's trapped inside sight.
And this is match point. Keep that in mind. Bosco and Skies do not have that diffuser. They will need to rotate, but they've got no time. Very little left. Skies will drop. He's going to get caught. Bosco obliterates Avian, but will not be able to get the next, and that will be Elephant Gang taking your first map. 6-2. Very similar scoreline that we saw against members only just last week. And yes, it was Elephant Gang's map on Coastline, but still, overall, a really good result. And that will put Obey on the back of their feet and knock them on their heels for Consulate.
Well, definitely been, as you said, a good map for them. Is going to be up to them to just be well prepared to turn things around on Consulate and make sure to have that infamous map reset mentality where they go into the next map going, that's fine, that was their map.